Welcome in, everybody. It's time for Dreamcasters. I'm Devon O'Day.
I'm Bill Cinque coming to you on tape from Los Angeles, California. I think my trusty sidekick, there she is,
Yes.
Trouble the Wonder Cat, will be walking around behind us.
She's all about it. She's all about it today. Bill, I pulled out a trusty topic, and I know that you'll be able to speak to some of these. I want to talk about expiration dates. There's those things that we put in. We've used this phrase before. There is no expiration date for a dream.
Right.
However, there are things that come up that will make us quit, that will stop us in our tracks, that will make us go, I can't. Ageism being one of them. Mm-hmm. I'm too old to try. I am too old to be a part of this. Do you ever hear that when you talk to people when they're coming in and they're practicing to do something and they really want to do something, but they go, I just can't.
I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time in both professions. I hear it in my profession as a musician. I hear it all the time as a hypnotist. And this is such a great topic because on the surface, these things always sound easy. Telling somebody how to get in shape or telling somebody how to stop smoking, from the other person's perspective, it always seems so easy, right? Well, just stop eating or just do push-ups or just stop smoking, just push yourself away from the cigarettes. But it's hard. You get into really bad habits. And one of the habits you get into when we talk about something like ageism is I'm going to say more often than not, it's the person, the client in my case, who has talked themselves into that. Mm-hmm. Now, exactly what I mean by that is there are enough pressures externally in the world. But when I try to unpack it, as they say, unpack the problem, untangle it, and I'll say, well, who exactly told you that you're too old? Did anybody ever say to you, I'm not hiring you for this because you're too old? And they say, well, no. I say, did you go for the interview? They say, well, no. Did you even send an email or a text? Did you make a phone call? They say no. I'm not saying all the time, but the overwhelming. So what that leads me to believe is that no one told you you're too old other than you. And so to that end, you kind of have to say, why are you convincing yourself that you can't do this job, do that task, take that trip, whatever it is? I always find that fascinating, and that's where the part comes in for me. So how's that for a kickstart to today's show?
I think it's excellent because that's where I love to start it, is because, wait a minute, who told you this? Who told you that you're too old to achieve this dream? Is it because there are no 80-year-old ballerinas and you think you're too old to do it? Or did you just assume that you are too old and say no? It's interesting. I have some friends that did not start dancing until they were mid-70s. They just started. Yeah. They'd never danced ever, suffering from COPD, cancer survivors. They were widowers. They were all just looking for something to do. And now they're on a competitive dance circuit. They couldn't walk, several of them couldn't walk across the room without getting winded. Right. But now they're competitive dancers. And I always think, now, are they a rockette? No. But are they dancing? Yes. I mean, your dream might be molded into a way that you didn't exactly see at the beginning, but there's no expiration on that dream. If you want to be a dancer, dance. If you want to be a writer, write. There are people all the time. I see these wonderful, inspiring videos of people who decided to go to college, and at 90 they graduate.
Yeah. Yeah. See, there are a couple of different aspects of this that need to be examined. And when I say need to be examined by our audience. It's not for us to examine them. You have to examine yourself. But when you try to figure out why you're telling yourself no, that always can be an interesting journey. You sometimes go down the rabbit hole. And Just so your audience, you and I always laugh about how we write things down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect anybody to be able to read this, but this is my
Mm-hmm.
little scribble of notes before we come on air like this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a phrase that I like to use, and you're all welcome to it, because I have plenty of phrases. I call them my bumper stickers. It's when I ask somebody, well, why are you afraid of that? Well, why don't you want to do that? Why can't you face that? 95% of the time, their answer is, oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. And this is what I say. And here's my phrase that you're all welcome to. I don't know has got to go. I will not accept I don't know. If you don't know, let's find out.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of being the person who is watching your friends, the 80-year-old, 90-year-old women dance, the people that put themselves in the role of a bystander as opposed to someone who is a participant, that's always going to be the result. You have relegated yourself to the sidelines.
Right.
And if you use a little bit of visualization, that's part of it. The idea of visualization is not magic. The idea of visualization is, can I actually see myself dancing with those people? If you can, there's a good chance you can do it. If you can't, you either have to change course or try to make that happen. I mean, either you give up that dream, move on to something else. If you can see yourself doing it, you're giving yourself the best shot imaginable. If you cannot see yourself doing it, if you cannot visualize yourself in that spot, there's probably a reason for it.
Wow. Okay, so our first take on expiration dates is an expiration date on a dream is something set by ourselves. It's arbitrarily set by us, and it's not a real thing because there isn't an expiration on date. 2, the thing that you have to let go of is the outcome of how that dream is supposed to come to fruition. We like to control it, and we have to say winning an Oscar is the outcome. Well, you can't always control whether you win an Oscar. You can head that way. You can be the best actor in the world. There are a lot of great actors who haven't won an Oscar. But you can be in a motion picture. You can act in the little theater. You can compete on that level. You have to put yourself in the arena where you can do it. You have to find yourself an agent. Maybe you have to study, but you have to let go of the outcome of where that dream will take you. We get really focused on the destination, but we forget about the journey. And that's really the important part.
There's a great saying that someone told me a long time ago, and it kind of changed my life because they said, consider everything you do and give it your best shot, but don't be attached to the outcome, which is exactly what you're saying. Your job is not to win an Oscar. Your job might be to be the best actor you can be, or the best director, and on and on. And that would go the same way with being a car mechanic or being an accountant. You want to be the best you can be. And the expiration date that we're talking about is incredibly self-imposed. Very few others put that on you. And if they do, I guess the better way to say it is they might try to put it on you. If you accept it, you let them win.
Right.
So you set your own pace. And so when we talk about this stuff, the idea of I don't know, right, which we would dipped into before. The idea of I don't know, I always say I don't know, gotta go, because you have to find out why you're stopping yourself. What is it? What are those items that are clutter? What are those fragments that are getting in your way? What is it that happened in your relationship? What does that happen in school? What happened when you were a kid? What was it that made such an imprint that you are telling yourself you can't do something? And that's worth looking at. That is worth looking at. And it could be scary, but that is worth looking at.
The I don't know, I always maintain every time I have those conversations. Well, I don't know. The I don't know in those cases usually means I don't want to look at that. I absolutely know, but I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell myself. I don't want to say it out loud. But until we put that into action, until we say it out loud, until we say, okay, I know what the problem is. And if you can't fix the problem, if you can't diagnose and say what the problem is, until you find the reasons or whatever, you can take your car and say, it doesn't run, it doesn't run, it doesn't run. And you take it to a mechanic and he says, I don't know. That doesn't help you. Doesn't get your car running.
Yeah. They always say identifying the problem is the biggest step. Now, if I'm raising my hand and I'm admitting to this one. I have a garage. I have a 2-car garage. There's no car in there. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't know what half of it is. To be honest, when the house starts to get cluttered up, I just don't always have the energy to sort things out and throw this away or sell this or pile things in the garage. That's probably not a good habit. When you do that emotionally, it's a lot more dangerous. It's a lot more, has a lot more gravity to it. When you have stuff piled up that you can't sort through, when you have emotions piled up and you don't know what to do with them, that's the clutter that gets in the way of these dreams that we talk about. Now, of course, the name of the show is Dreamcasters. We always say that. So we're talking about this to kind of, get you a little closer to the bullseye. Telling yourself there's an expiration date. That's self-imposed, and you have to get rid of that. When people ask you to either face your fear, there's another phrase, face the music, which I tend to gravitate towards. But the idea of facing the music is just, like we just said, it's identifying what the problem is and how do we go about fixing it.
Right.
And so if you want to dance with those 90-year-old women, if that's that inspiration, which I haven't even seen these people, it's already an inspiration. I mean, that's fantastic. You have to look at that and say, what does that take? Does it take a lot of money? Does it take a lot of time? Does it take a lot of energy? Does it take a lot of focus? It probably takes 2 of the 4. And you just have to figure out if you're ready to do that. The idea of writing, when you say, if you want to be a writer, you have to write. That just sounds so simplistic.
Right.
But the fact is, I mean, my mode, I write all the time. I've written books, I've written, plays. I sit down with a pen and paper. Now, whatever your mode of operation is, you have to sit down at that table with the computer or the pencil or whatever it is. You can't just walk past that table and hope that it's going to happen. You have to sit down, turn on the lights, put on your creative hat,
excuse me,
and start something. And there are so many people that talk in terms of woulda, coulda, shoulda, what they're going to do. These are all the things that get in the way, and these are all the things that turn into expiration dates, right? Because I've been telling myself for 10 years that I want to dance with those women. I've been telling myself for 10 years that I'm going to write that book. Here I am in 2023. I haven't done that. I guess I'm too old. No, you can sit down right now and start all of this.
You can start speaking your book into your voice memo on your phone.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to type it down. And that's the other thing is like people think, oh, I don't type very well. Here's what I will tell every writer, creator that's out there. When you start to write, even if you have to close your eyes and put your hands on a keyboard, don't correct as you go. Don't even stop. Don't lift pencil from paper. Just get down as much as you can, free flow it. Just because that initial organic feeling is what the essence of what you want to write. Now, when we get into the scientific production of it, an editor or whatever, I had some words with some people because there was someone in my family that wanted to write, and they began to write. And then the critics in my family all began to edit his work.
Right.
And they won't be watching this, so I'm just going to go ahead and just give this a little bit of the stories because they'll probably recognize themselves. And I jumped on both of them and I said, you're killing the creative spirit.
Right.
You're creating the novelist. You're killing the creativity of the novelist within him. I said, they said, well, the grammar's wrong. I said, when you learn to speak, you're not taught grammar first.
Mm-hmm.
You're taught to speak. You're not even taught to read first.
Yeah.
You're taught to communicate. Let him communicate the thing he wants to create, the thing that he wants to say. If he has to speak it into a recorder, let him do it. Will there be something that needs to be corrected? Great. The second, third, fourth, fifth pass, maybe that's when you do it. But if you are a writer, you sit down and begin to write freehand, sit on a computer, record it into a recorder, but let it flow before you start to edit, because you can kill your dream right within that.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And I can speak to that on a couple of different levels with a couple of different points. Number one, I've said this in some of the speaking engagements that I've done. If a guy walks into a room and stands on stage in front of 100 people and says, I ain't going to go there no more. Okay, the grammar is not what it should be. Every one of those 100 people know exactly what this guy just said. There's no misunderstanding. There's no miscommunication. This guy was fine. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Second thing is this. Any writers out there who are going to take writing courses, and there are a lot of, it's not just going to school or going to college, but there are these writing courses and these writing organizations. AWAI is one of them. There's all different kinds of things you can do online. And if you are a copywriter, copywriting is not copyrights. That's a different thing. That's essentially trademarking. That's rights.
Right.
Writing copy for magazines, for television, for ads and things. They steer you away from grammar. They absolutely steer you away from things. For instance, if I say, "What are you waiting for?" That's improper. It's, for what are you waiting? You would never write that in copy.
Because people don't talk that way.
Of course not. Of course not. And so the idea is for me to scan through an advertisement for a new product. If I have to read it twice and say, wait a minute, what are you saying here? You lost me. So the idea is, here is this new detergent. You know why you want it? Because it's cheaper, because it works better, because it makes you smell like, daffodils, whatever it is. We need to hit you like that.
Mm-hmm.
If it takes you an extra 3 paragraphs just because you want all the grammar, you want everything letter perfect, so to speak, you've lost half your audience.
You've lost it. You've lost it. Absolutely.
So when you're talking about, killing the creativity, yeah, the story has to come out of you. You can refine it later. If you're going to take the time to spell check everything you do on your first pass, you're never going to get to your second pass.
And if you are writing and you do have spell check and things like that, it's very hard to keep going when your left eye sees the little blue line. It's really hard not to go back and correct it. But I encourage you to start writing and don't correct. Just let it flow. Just let it flow from your fingertips. Then go back.
Now,
the way I proofread the first time, I read it out loud. Mm-hmm. That's how I proofread, because the things that are lumpy, the things that don't sound right, the things that really will mar the creativity and mar the communication is if it sounds funny coming out of the red word, not the written word, but the red word, because your eye will autocorrect it every time, but your mouth won't.
Right. And that's exactly. Now, what if we take this whole Dreamcasters approach to editing, writing, rewriting, not correcting everything, and you expand that a little more into everyday life? Right? What if you really said what you meant? As opposed to, well, what I'm really thinking you might not want to hear, or what I'm really thinking, and I don't just mean being rude, because I know that might be where you jump to first. I will give you another example. Many, many years ago, I was at a wedding, and the best man was the groom's brother. And it was sweet and emotional. And the young man got up. He was probably 22 years old, probably had never been in front of a microphone. There he is with his trembling hand trying to hold a champagne glass. Probably rehearsed his speech 100 times, but still when you get up there, some of that evaporates. And he said, with tears in his eyes, to my brother and his beautiful wife, may they have the most, and he kind of stammered, to my brother and his wife, and he was trying to retread the whole thing and said, may they have the happiest and most wonderfulest life. And we all kind of giggled and clapped because his sentiment was right.
Yeah.
After that, I got up and I said, let me tell you something, everybody. Everybody here understood exactly what it meant. From now on, I'm using that phrase because at this moment, words escaped everybody. So why not make up your own, right? Let's have fun with it. If it's wonderful, that's great. But if it's the wonderfulest, that's got to be better, right?
And copywriters for commercials have been doing that for years. They've been, okay, how do we make a superlative even more superlative?
Right.
It's just, that's what it is, And
it sometimes comes from those moments when he was not editing himself. He was as raw as the guy sitting down there with a pen and paper. He wasn't trying to spell check in his head. It came out of his heart, and he said, the most wonderfulest. And I've used that phrase for 25 years now. Because
I love that.
because I think it fits,
It does.
So, again, as this applies to expiration dates, as this applies to facing the music, facing your fears, identifying the problem, a lot of it has to do with creativity. You need a creative approach. You couldn't get there the practical way. You couldn't take the way everybody else is going. Sometimes you have to take the road less traveled. And if you're seeing 80 and 90-year-old women dancing and ballet and yoga, they clearly took a different route. Right? I think that's pretty obvious. That's not the obvious way to go.
There's a very famous yoga teacher here in Nashville that I met her in a class. I took her class and she was saying something. I said, well, when I, on my 60th birthday, and I thought, how old is this woman? Because she looked like she was 35. She goes, oh, I didn't even start yoga until I was almost 50.
Yeah.
She started, and she's an instructor in her 60s, and she reversed time by what that exercise and breathing did for her body. There's so many things that you can do to reverse your time. And then people say, how do I find a group? How do I find a group? Well, you can go on Google or whatever and look for groups. And if you are a senior citizen, you can find a senior group that does the thing that you want to do. Senior kayakers, senior hikers, senior travelers, if that's what you want to do. Or you can go and join a group and be the only senior in that group and hang out with people 20 years younger than you are.
Yeah,
and they'll think you're adorable.
Be the mentor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that opens up another dream for you. Because in that environment, that same person that says, I have an expiration date, I'm too old to do this, I'm too old to do that, finds himself or herself being the elder statesman at 70 years old when everybody else in the group was 50. And suddenly they're looking up to the 70-year-old. That's an incredible situation for everybody. That's a win-win. So these are the kind of things that when we talk about facing the music and identifying the problems, if the problem is, I don't dance, but I really want to dance, as you said, we'll go dance. You're not going to be great to begin with. Who is? Get it going, and start talk about putting one foot in front of the other. This would be the literal putting one foot in front of the other if you're going to dance.
I didn't have the money to start painting at the time, but I really wanted to paint. So I started getting recycled. I just would go to and pick up cardboard, big pieces of cardboard, And I would practice painting on cardboard. And then a friend of mine says, oh, I've got some old canvases that I messed up. I didn't like them, but you just paint over them. So I have a bunch of used canvases that I just created new things on. And I just started practicing. And I mean, and watercolors, I just went to Dollar Tree and got me some brushes, and I kind of worked with them. And I said, okay, if I really like it, I'll keep getting better and I'll keep doing it. Mainly, I just enjoyed painting. I still enjoy painting. And it's just one of those things. Am I great at it? No, but I really enjoy it. And I started going to some of these classes where you go, you know what? I'm gonna let you put a pin in it because I'm gonna grab one of my paintings. I've got one sitting right over here. I'm gonna grab one because I got kind of proud of it because I started in one of those painting classes and I couldn't follow the lines, where they put the little form up there, and it's like I was more free form. But I'm gonna get it's right here, so I'm gonna get that. But you can talk about something that you have done.
Well, the interesting part of this upcoming piece is that this is one of the few times we will visually see a dream come true. The idea of having a dream and talking about it, now we're about to see one of Devon O'Day's dreams come true visually.
Okay. I wanted to paint a winter scene for my house. And I wanted to paint my barn, and it's the barn that I always wanted. I didn't have this barn yet. And so when I wanted the barn, I wanted a red barn, and I wanted to have a little loft, and I wanted to have this. And when I bought my house, this barn was there. I painted my vision for what my life would be. And is it perfect? No. But was it a lot of fun? Yeah. And do I put it out every year at wintertime? It's about to, I have it here because I'm going to do my Christmas set.
Yeah.
And I've got my little trees and my little winter scene.
Yeah. I also think we could talk about when you say, is it perfect? Well, maybe it is, because it certainly served an incredible purpose. I don't know if that's life imitating art or art imitating life. I don't know which way that goes, but that's pretty powerful stuff right there. Like I said, that's a dream, not just a dream imagined, but the rest of us can visually look at that piece of art.
It's just something that you do. And if you enjoy it, nobody can take that away from you. There is no expiration on that dream. If you want to write songs, okay, writing songs and getting songs recorded are two different things.
Yeah.
And people get so caught up in the outcome of, well, if I'm not getting songs recorded, I'm not going to write songs. Okay, well, then you're not a songwriter. If you're a songwriter, you can't help it. I spoke with Dennis Morgan, who is a member of every Hall of Fame possible. He's written songs for 40 years in Nashville. He's had his own publishing company. Number ones by Aretha Franklin and Eric Clapton and Barbara Mandrell and a ton of Ronnie. He wrote Smoky Mountain Rain, So there's so many people out there that I was talking to him and he says, Devon, I still write 6 days a week. 6 days a week. And I said, you get all those cut? He says, oh, I haven't had cut in a while, but he said, I just can't help it. He said, I have to write. I have to write. I was so blown away. I hope you look up his music because Dennis Morgan's a master.
Sure. I'd love to. Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's the term that I've used sometimes is, it's not that I can do it. I can't not do it. I have to do it. I can't stop myself from, I write music every day. I have notebooks. I have my, voice memos in my phone. I have little scribbled notes in my notepad in the phone that sometimes I'm just not intelligible, but I'm constantly writing, constantly. And I can't stop myself from writing. I don't take a day off from writing. I take a day off from other stuff. I don't take a day off from writing. And I think some of the people that we were talking about is if it's their dream, they probably don't take too many days off dancing. If they want to dance, they'll dance.
And we have a tendency to go really toward the creative when we talk on this show, but these dreams could be, just because I don't want to be an electrician doesn't mean it's not somebody else's dream. There's some people who just dig it, and they love being able to put something together, hook those wires up, and flip a switch, and voila, you've got light.
Yeah.
They're the people who go, man, I love fixing machines. I was at the racetrack this weekend, and there were kids to grandparents and great grandparents working on cars.
Yeah.
Getting them ready to go out, to go around that track. And it was fascinating how they were all just into the whole process. There were people that were working on the tires, and the people who were working on the inside of the car, and the people that were making sure everything was safe. What your dream is may not be the creative paint, sing, dance, whatever. It might just be making a machine, inventing things.
Well, Henry Ford did okay with that, and
Edison too.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla. There's a couple of those guys that did okay. Yeah, I think what we have here is a topic that we can carry into our next episode, and that's how to find that spark of genius that every single person has, whether it's mechanical, creative, spiritual. There are a lot of different ways, but when you find it and you follow it, that will lead you to your dream.
We'll be watching on our next Dreamcasters. We're on Tuesdays, the noon Central Time. You can find it on my Facebook page. We have it on YouTube, LinkedIn, and of course, Bill's page as well, shared after the program. So you guys follow us and subscribe and share, because we love helping you find your dreams. This is Dreamcasters. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody, for watching.